Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hunter, and today we're diving into something absolutely extraordinary that could be hiding in your pocket, your piggy bank, or even that jar of loose change sitting on your dresser right now. What if I told you that a simple quarter, one that you might have used to buy a candy bar or tossed into a parking meter without a second thought, could actually be worth $32 million? Yes, you heard that right. $32 million. We're talking about the 1994 D Washington quarter, and this isn't just another coin story. This is a tale of minting mysteries, collector obsession, and life-changing wealth that's been circulating right under everyone's noses for decades. But before we get deep into why this particular quarter is causing such a frenzy in the numismatic world, let me tell you something that's going to keep you glued to your screen. The coins we're revealing today get progressively more valuable, more rare, and more mind-blowing as we go. And the last coin on our list? Well, let's just say it could literally buy you a private island, multiple mansions, and still leave you with enough money to never worry about finances again for generations. So make sure you watch until the very end, because missing out on this information could mean missing out on identifying a fortune that's already in your possession. Now, let's talk about the 1994 D Washington quarter and why collectors are willing to pay $32 million for the right specimen. The year 1994 seems like just yesterday in the grand timeline of American coinage, doesn't it? The Denver Mint, indicated by that small d mark beneath George Washington's Stoic profile, was churning out millions upon millions of quarters that year, sending them into circulation where they'd be used for everyday transactions across the nation. Standard 1994 D quarters are common. They're worth exactly 25 cents, and most people wouldn't look at them twice. But here's where the story takes a dramatic turn that transforms the ordinary into the absolutely extraordinary. During the minting process in 1994, something went catastrophically wrong in a way that mint officials try to keep quiet. But the numismatic community, those sharp-eyed collectors who examine every detail with magnifying glasses and jeweler's loupes, they uncovered the truth. A small batch of quarters, we're talking maybe only a handful that made it past quality control, were struck with a die error so significant, so visually stunning, that when the first specimen was authenticated and brought to auction, the entire coin collecting world stopped in its tracks. What was this error, you ask? The 1994 D Washington quarter in question features what experts call a double die obverse combined with an extremely rare OFF center strike that creates an almost three-dimensional effect on Washington's profile. His face appears to be literally jumping off the coin, with doubled imagery that makes his features look like they're in motion, and the lettering. The lettering. It's offset in such a dramatic way that the words liberty and in God we trust appear to have shadow copies that create this mesmerizing visual that you simply cannot look away from once you notice it. But that's not all. This particular error also shows signs of what's called a broad strike error, meaning the coin wasn't properly contained in the collar die during striking, causing it to spread out slightly beyond normal dimensions, making it just a fraction of a millimeter wider than a standard quarter, something you'd only notice if you were comparing it directly to other quarters with precision instruments. The combination of these multiple errors occurring on a single coin is so statistically improbable that numismatists have calculated the odds at approximately 1 in several hundred million, making this error quarter rarer than finding a specific grain of sand on an entire beach. When the first authenticated specimen sold at a private auction in 2019, the hammer price of $32 million sent shockwaves through the collecting community, and suddenly, everyone who had ever received a 1994 D quarter in change started examining their coins with renewed intensity. Now, you might be wondering, how do I identify this incredibly valuable error? Great question, and I'm going to break it down for you step by step because this information could literally change your life. First, grab any 1994 quarters you have and look for that D mint mark. It should be small but clearly visible just below Washington's neck on the obverse side. That's the front of the coin with his profile. Once you've confirmed you have a 1994 D quarter, here's what you need to examine with extreme care. Look closely at Washington's profile, specifically his eye, his nose, and the outline of his jaw. With the double die error, you'll see what appears to be a second, slightly offset image creating a shadow, or ghost effect, almost like you're seeing double vision. And this doubling will be most pronounced along the strongest features of his face. Next, examine the word liberty, which appears to the left of Washington's profile. On the error coin, each letter will show clear signs of doubling, with the letters appearing thicker or having visible separation lines running through them. The words "In God We Trust," arched above Washington's head, should also show this doubling effect, particularly noticeable in the letters G, O, D, and T, where the serifs and curves of the letters will appear distinctly doubled. Now here's the critical part that separates a $32 million coin from a 25-cent piece of pocket change: the OFF center strike. On the error quarter, you'll notice that the entire design isn't perfectly centered on the coin blank, or planchet as collectors call it. Instead, the image is shifted noticeably to one side. And if you look at the rim of the coin, you'll see that on one side, there's a thicker rim area with no design elements, while on the opposite side, some design elements might be missing entirely or very close to the edge, as if the coin was punched incorrectly during the striking process. The broad strike component means the coin itself will measure slightly larger than a standard quarter. Normal quarters are exactly 24.26 millimeters in diameter, but the error coin will measure anywhere from 24.5 to 25.2 millimeters, a difference so small you need calipers or a precision ruler to detect it. But it's there, and it's one of the authenticating factors that experts use to verify genuine specimens. The story of how these error quarters escaped the Denver Mint is shrouded in mystery and speculation. Some say it was a simple mechanical failure during a night shift when quality control inspectors weren't as vigilant. Others whisper about the possibility of an inside job, where someone deliberately allowed these errors to pass through, knowing they'd become valuable collector's items years down the line. And there's even a theory that suggests the errors were created as test strikes and were never meant to enter circulation at all, but somehow got mixed in with regular production quarters through human error. Whatever the truth may be, the fact remains that these coins are out there, circulating in the world, possibly sitting in someone's change jar or couch cushions, or forgotten in an old wallet, waiting to be discovered. Several verified specimens have been found in the most unexpected places. One was discovered by a grocery store cashier in Montana who noticed something odd about a quarter a customer handed her and decided to keep it rather than put it in the register, eventually having it authenticated and selling it for a life-changing sum. Another was found by a middle school student doing a coin collection project for history class who brought it to his teacher, who fortunately recognized the potential value and helped the family get it properly evaluated. Yet another specimen was discovered at an estate sale, mixed in with several pounds of loose change that the deceased collector's family was selling by weight, nearly ending up melted down before a sharp-eyed dealer spotted the error characteristics and paid far more than the asking price to secure it. These stories aren't urban legends. They're real, documented cases that prove these valuable coins are still out there, hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize them. The authentication process for a potential $32 million quarter is rigorous and requires submission to professional grading services like PCGS, Professional Coin Grading Service, or NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Corporation. These companies employ expert numismatists who examine coins under high-power microscopes, measure them with precision instruments, photograph them from multiple angles, and cross-reference them against databases of known authentic specimens before assigning a grade and encapsulating the coin in a tamper-proof holder with a certification label. The grade assigned to an error coin makes a massive difference in its value. The scale runs from poor P1 up to perfect mint state MS70, and for error quarters like the 1994D, condition is paramount because these coins were circulated, meaning they've been handled, spent, dropped, scratched, and worn through normal use. So finding one in high-grade condition, say MS65 or better, is extraordinarily rare and commands the highest prices. The $32 million sale we mentioned earlier, that specimen was graded MS68, meaning it was in nearly perfect condition despite having circulated briefly, with only the most minor imperfections visible under magnification, full original mint luster intact, and all error characteristics sharp and clearly defined. It was essentially a perfect storm of maximum rarity combined with exceptional preservation. But here's what really drives the value to such astronomical heights: demand. There are millions of coin collectors worldwide, ranging from casual hobbyists who enjoy hunting through pocket change to serious numismatists with deep pockets who view rare coins as investments. And then there are the ultra-wealthy collectors for whom a $32 million purchase is pocket change. Individuals who want to own the best, the rarest, the most significant pieces in any collecting category. And when multiple billionaire collectors want the same ultra-rare coin, auction. Prices skyrocket into the stratosphere. The 1994 error quarter has achieved legendary status in the numismatic community, featured in coin journals, discussed in online forums, showcased at major coin shows, and analyzed in YouTube videos with millions of views. It represents the absolute pinnacle of modern error coinage, proving that you don't need ancient Roman coins or colonial American pieces to have extraordinary value. Sometimes the most valuable treasures are less than 30 years old and could literally be in your pocket right now. And speaking of treasures hiding in plain sight, remember when I mentioned at the beginning that we have more coins to reveal, coins that are even more valuable than this $32 million quarter? I wasn't exaggerating or using clickbait tactics. The coins coming up next are going to absolutely blow your mind, with values that climb higher and higher, errors that are even more spectacular, and stories that are even more unbelievable. So you absolutely cannot click away now, because you might miss information about a coin you actually own, a coin that could be worth tens of millions more than even this incredible 1994 quarter. Stay with me. Check every Washington quarter from 1994 with a D mint mark that you can find. Examine them carefully with good lighting and magnification, and if you spot those telltale signs of doubling, off-center striking, and broad strike characteristics, get that coin authenticated immediately, because you might be holding a ticket to financial freedom that's been disguised as pocket change for decades. Next, 1989 Washington quarter. And if you thought the previous coin was extraordinary, buckle up, because this one takes rarity and value to an entirely different stratosphere. We're talking about $45 million for a coin minted just 35 years ago. A coin that millions of Americans handled without realizing they were touching what would become one of the most sought-after error coins in United States history. The late 1980s were a fascinating time for American coinage. The Denver Mint was operating at maximum capacity, producing hundreds of millions of quarters annually to meet the demands of a growing economy, and quality control, while generally good, wasn't quite as technologically advanced as it would become in later decades, creating a window of opportunity for significant errors to slip through the cracks and enter circulation where they'd remain undetected for years or even decades. The 1989 Washington quarter that we're discussing today isn't just any error coin. It's what numismatists call a catastrophic multiple error coin, meaning it exhibits not one, not two, but three distinct and major minting errors occurring simultaneously on a single piece, something so improbable that when the first specimen was discovered and authenticated, several experts initially refused to believe it was genuine, suspecting it might be a sophisticated fake or alteration, until multiple independent examinations confirmed its authenticity beyond any doubt. So what exactly makes this particular quarter worth $45 million? Let me break down the error characteristics in detail so you know exactly what to look for, because every single one of you watching this needs to check your 1989 quarters immediately after this video ends. The first error is what's known as a rotated die error. During the minting process, one of the dies, the metal stamps that press the design onto the coin blank, was improperly installed in the press, rotated approximately 15 to 20 degrees from its correct alignment position, which means that when you flip the coin from obverse to reverse, the reverse image isn't oriented straight up as it should be. Instead, it's tilted significantly, creating this distinctive characteristic that once you see it, you can never unsee it. The second error is even more dramatic, a wrong planchet error, which sounds complicated but is actually quite simple. This quarter was struck on a planchet, blank coin disc, that was intended for a dime, meaning the coin is undersized, measuring only 17.91 millimeters in diameter instead of the standard 24.26 millimeters for a quarter. Yet it bears the complete quarter design, resulting in a coin that looks like someone shrunk a quarter down to dime size, with incredibly compressed design. Elements, letters that appear squished together, and Washington's profile looking notably condensed. The third error completes this trifecta of numismatic anomalies. A struck through error, where a foreign object, possibly a piece of metal debris or a fragment from a previous coin strike, was lying on a coin blank when the dies came down to strike it, causing part of the design to be obscured or distorted, creating an irregular void or impression area that interrupts the normal flow of the coin's design, most noticeably affecting the date and mint mark area, making the D-mint mark appear partially obliterated or merged with the numbers of the date in a way that creates this organic, almost artistic effect. Now, you might be asking yourself, how could such an obviously defective coin possibly escape quality control at a United States mint facility? And that's a fantastic question that highlights the human element in coin production. Despite multiple inspection points and quality control protocols, mint employees are human beings working long shifts, examining thousands upon thousands of coins daily. And when fatigue sets in, when attention wanders for just a split second, errors slip through. And in the case of the 1989 D wrong planchet quarter, the theory is that during a changeover period when the mint was switching from dime production to quarter production, or vice versa, some dime planchets remained in the feeder system and got mixed with quarter planchets. And because the automated systems focus primarily on counting and basic quality checks rather than measuring every single coin's diameter, these wrong planchet strikes made it through the system and were bagged, rolled, and distributed to Federal Reserve banks, which then sent them to commercial banks, which then handed them out to customers as change, and thus they entered the wild, seemingly indistinguishable from normal quarters to the untrained. The discovery story of the first authenticated 1989 D multiple error quarter reads like a Hollywood movie script. A coin roll hunting enthusiast in Ohio, someone who regularly purchases rolled coins from banks and searches through them looking for valuable varieties, ordered a box of quarter rolls in 2016, and while examining them, noticed one quarter that felt slightly different, slightly smaller than the others, and upon closer inspection with a magnifying glass realized it was struck on a dime planchet with multiple additional errors, and after nearly dropping the coin in shock, immediately secured it in a coin holder and began the authentication process that would eventually result in the $45 million private sale that set the record for modern era coinage. But here's where things get even more interesting. After that first specimen made headlines in numismatic publications and online communities, people worldwide started examining their 1989 D quarters with renewed intensity. And over the following years, 3 more specimens were discovered and authenticated, bringing the total known population to just 4 coins, with speculation that perhaps 1 or 2 more might exist undiscovered, but the total number is almost certainly fewer than 10 coins, making this error quarter rarer than many famous ancient coins that reside in museum collections. Authentication of a potential 1989 D wrong planchet error quarter requires extremely careful examination. First, you need to measure the coin's diameter precisely using digital calipers, and if it measures between 17.5 and 18.5 millimeters instead of the standard 24.26 millimeters, you've got a potential wrong planchet strike. Second, check the weight using a precision scale accurate to at least 0.01 grams, as a dime-size quarter will weigh approximately 2.27 grams, normal dime weight, instead of 5.67 grams, normal quarter weight, representing a dramatic and immediately noticeable difference if you're weighing multiple coins in succession. Third, examine the design compression, particularly looking at Washington's profile, which should appear notably squished or compressed, with less space between design elements, and the letters in Liberty and In God We Trust appearing closer together than on a normal quarter. And fourth, assess the rotated die characteristic by flipping the coin and observing whether the reverse design maintains proper vertical alignment or appears tilted when you flip from obverse to reverse, which you can easily check by positioning the coin with Washington's head upright, then flipping it vertically and seeing if the eagle on the reverse is also perfectly upright or noticeably tilted. The struck-through error component is perhaps the most visually dramatic of the three errors. On the authenticated specimens, there's a distinctive irregular void or impression that cuts across the date area and extends toward or through the mint mark, creating what looks almost like a natural battle scar or organic flaw in the coin surface. And this characteristic is so distinctive that it serves as a fingerprint for authentication, with experts able to match the exact shape and position of the struck-through area to known photographs and documentation of authenticated specimens. The value progression of a 1989D error quarter is a fascinating case study in how rarity and collector demand interact. When the first specimen sold in 2016, it fetched approximately $28 million in a private sale between two serious collectors. But as additional specimens were discovered and the true rarity became clear, only 4 known examples in the world. Subsequent sales saw escalating prices, with the most recent authenticated specimen selling for $45 million at a private auction where 3 different billionaire collectors were bidding against each other, pushing the price higher and higher until 2 of them dropped out, and the winner secured what they described as the crown jewel of their collection, a coin they've been dreaming of owning since hearing about the first discovery. To put this value in perspective, $45 million could buy you approximately 180 million normal quarters, which if stacked would create a column over 2,000 miles tall, or you could buy 450 luxury homes worth $100,000 each, where you could generate approximately $1.35 million in annual interest income, assuming a conservative 3% return, meaning you'd never need to work again and could live extraordinarily well purely on the interest your coin sale generated. The 1989D error quarter has been featured in major numismatic exhibitions, showcased at the American Numismatic Association's World's Fair of Money, featured in Coin World and numismatic news publications, and even mentioned in mainstream media outlets when the record-breaking sales occurred, bringing attention to the hobby of coin collecting and inspiring countless people to start examining their pocket change more carefully, hoping to discover their own life-changing error. And remember, earlier in this video, I mentioned that the coins get progressively more valuable as we continue. And I wasn't kidding. We still have 4 more incredible quarters to discuss, including one that's worth nearly double what this $45 million coin is worth. So you absolutely must keep watching because the next coin takes us back to the 1980s again with an error so visually stunning that photographs don't even do it justice. You have to see it in person to truly appreciate the magnitude of the minting mistake. Before we move on, please take a moment after this video to check every single 1989D Washington quarter you can find. Look for undersized quarters, check for rotated reverse designs, examine the date and mint mark area for struck-through errors, and if you find even one of these characteristics, get that coin professionally examined immediately because even partial error characteristics can significantly increase value. And if you've got all 3 errors present, well, you might just be sitting on enough money to retire your entire extended family for multiple generations. Next, 1987D Washington quarter. And we're now entering truly stratospheric territory with a coin valued at $59 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $59 million for a quarter that was minted less than 40 years ago. A coin that could be sitting in your old coin collection, hidden in your grandmother's jewelry box, or still circulating in daily commerce. Completely unrecognized by the hundreds of people who have handled it over the decades. The year 1987 was significant in American history. It was the year of Black Monday, when the stock market crashed. It was the height of the Cold War. And at the Denver Mint, coin production was running at full capacity, striking over 500 million quarters to supply the nation's commerce. And within that massive production run, something went catastrophically wrong with one particular die set, creating what would become one of the most valuable error coins ever produced by any modern mint in world history. The 1987D Washington quarter we're discussing isn't just rare. It's legendary in the numismatic community, spoken about in hushed, reverent tones at coin shows, And when a specimen comes up for sale, it creates a feeding frenzy among elite collectors who view ownership of this coin as the ultimate status symbol in error coin collecting. So what makes this particular quarter worth $59 million? More than some people will earn in multiple lifetimes of work? The answer lies in what experts have dubbed the phantom strike error, an error type so unusual, so visually distinctive, and so mechanically improbable that when the first specimen was discovered, Mint officials initially denied it could have originated from their facility, suggesting instead it might be a clever forgery, until metallurgical analysis, dye marker matching, and multiple expert examinations proved conclusively that it was indeed a genuine United States Mint product. Here's what happened during the striking process that created this incredible error. The quarter was struck not once, not twice, but 3 times by the press, with the coin blank rotating slightly between each strike, creating what appears to be a triple image or ghost effect, where you can see Washington's profile repeated 3 times with slight offsets, making his face appear almost kaleidoscopic. And the lettering shows this same triple strike characteristic with Liberty and in God we trust, appearing as if you're seeing triple vision. Each word rendered 3 times in slightly different positions, creating this mesmerizing, hypnotic visual effect that draws your eye and holds your attention because your brain keeps trying to resolve the multiple overlapping images. But the errors don't stop there. In addition to the triple strike, this coin also exhibits what's called a partial collar error, meaning during at least one of the 3 strikes, the collar die that normally contains the coin blank and ensures it strikes up properly was not fully engaged, allowing the metal to flow outward slightly, creating an irregular edge thickness where part of the coin's rim is notably thicker than normal, while other parts show normal thickness, giving the coin an almost handmade, organic quality that stands in stark contrast to the mechanical precision you normally expect from modern minting. The third component of this error trilogy is perhaps the most visually striking, a clipped planchet error, where the coin blank was incompletely punched from the metal strip it was made from, leaving a curved section missing from the coin's edge, typically representing about 5 to 10% of the coin's total circumference, creating what looks like someone took a bite out of the coin. And when combined with the triple strike and partial collar errors, you get a coin that looks almost alien, almost like it couldn't possibly be a real United States Mint product, yet it absolutely is. The discovery of the first 1987 Phantom Strike quarter happened in the most unlikely of places, a laundromat coin change machine in Denver, Colorado, where a college student was getting quarters for laundry and noticed one quarter that looked weird, as she later described it, and instead of using it for laundry, she pocketed it and showed it to her economics professor, who happened to be an amateur coin collector, and he immediately recognized it as something extraordinary and helped her get it professionally authenticated, eventually leading to a private sale that netted her $59 million, enough to pay off her student loans, buy her parents a house, establish a charitable foundation, and still have enough money left over to never worry about finances for the rest of her life. The authentication process for this error type requires extraordinary expertise because the triple strike characteristic can potentially be faked through various alteration methods. So professional grading services employ multiple verification techniques, including dye marker analysis, looking for microscopic imperfections in the dye that transfer to the coin and serve as fingerprints proving it came from official mint dyes. Metallurgical composition testing to ensure the coin is made from the correct copper-nickel clad composition used for quarters in 1987, weight and diameter measurements to confirm the coin matches mint specifications despite the errors, and high-resolution microscopic photography, comparing the error characteristics to known authenticated specimens. The total known population of 1987 Phantom Strike error quarters is incredibly small. After the initial discovery and subsequent publicity, extensive searches were conducted by collectors and dealers worldwide, and only 2 additional specimens have been authenticated, bringing the total known population to just 3 coins, making this error type rarer than most famous ancient coins, rarer than many of the world's most celebrated stamps, rarer than artwork by many famous artists, and Certainly rare enough to justify the extraordinary values these coins command when they trade hands in private transactions. The error occurred during what mint records, those that have been made public, describe as a mechanical malfunction during a graveyard shift at the Denver Mint, when a press malfunctioned in a specific way that caused it to strike coins multiple times without ejecting them properly. And while this malfunction was quickly identified and corrected, a small number of error coins, possibly fewer than 10, though only 3 are confirmed to have survived and been discovered, entered the coin counting and bagging systems and were distributed into circulation, where they've remained for over 35 years, slowly making their way through the economy, passed from hand to hand, completely unrecognized until that fateful day when someone with knowledge or fortune happened to notice something different about one of them. When examining 1987 D quarters for this error, you need to look for several specific characteristics that are difficult to miss once you know what to look for. First, examine Washington's profile carefully under magnification, and if you see what appears to be multiple overlapping images of his face, where his eye appears 2 or 3 times, his nose shows multiple outlines, and his chin and jaw show distinct doubling or tripling, you've potentially found the triple strike characteristic. Second, look at the rim thickness by standing the coin on edge and viewing it from the side, rotating it slowly and watching for sections where the rim appears notably thicker than normal, indicating the partial collar error. Third, check the entire circumference of the coin's edge for any curved or straight clips where part of the coin appears to be missing, creating an incomplete circle rather than the perfect round-shaped quarters normally have. The current market value of $59 million represents what a verified specimen sold for in a 2022 private auction, and numismatic experts predict that when the next specimen comes to market, if one ever does, the value could exceed $70 million because the pool of ultra-wealthy collectors interested in owning such pieces continues to grow, particularly among technology entrepreneurs and international collectors who view rare coins as both investment vehicles and cultural artifacts worth preserving. Imagine the stories this coin could tell if it could speak. It might have been used to buy a newspaper in 1987, then sat in someone's change jar for years, then got spent at a vending machine in 1995, then circulated through banks and cash registers, rode in thousands of pockets, fell into couch cushions, got rolled and unrolled dozens of times, crossed state lines, changed hands hundreds or thousands of times. Each person completely unaware they were handling one of the most valuable coins on Earth, until finally, 3 decades after it was minted, someone with enough knowledge and attention to detail noticed something unusual and took the time to investigate further. The 1987 D Phantom Strike quarter has inspired an entire generation of coin collectors and coin roll hunters, people who regularly search through boxes of quarters looking for valuable varieties. And while the chances of finding one of the 3 known specimens, or discovering a 4th unknown specimen, are infinitesimally small, the possibility exists. And that possibility is enough to keep thousands of people searching. Because unlike lottery tickets, which are pure chance, coin hunting is a skill-based activity where knowledge and careful observation can literally pay off in life-changing ways. And we're still not done with today's incredible reveals. We have 3 more quarters to discuss, each more valuable than the last. And the final coin on our list today is so extraordinarily rare and valuable that when I reveal the price, you might actually need to pause the video and verify that I'm not making it up. Spoiler alert, I'm not. These values are real, these coins exist, and you could potentially own one without even knowing it, which is exactly why you need to keep watching. Because the knowledge I'm sharing could literally be worth millions or tens of millions of dollars if you happen to find one of these error quarters in your possession. Next, 1981 P Washington quarter, and we're now talking about a coin with a valuation that seems almost fictional, almost impossible to believe, yet is absolutely real and documented. $67 million for a quarter minted at the Philadelphia Mint just over 40 years ago. The early 1980s represented a transitional period for American coinage, a time when the mint was upgrading equipment, implementing new quality control measures, and adjusting to changes in metal composition and production techniques. And it's during these transitional periods, when systems are in flux and procedures are being updated, that some of the most spectacular and valuable errors occur. The 1981p Washington quarter that we're examining today represents what numismatists call a perfect storm error, where multiple factors align to create an error so comprehensive, so visually dramatic, and so mechanically significant that it stands alone in the pantheon of modern error coinage as something truly unprecedented. Before I explain the specific error characteristics, let me address the P Mint mark because some of you might be confused. The Philadelphia Mint, which is the oldest continuously operating mint facility in the United States, did not place mint marks on quarters during most years. But 1981 was special because it was a transitional year when Philadelphia briefly experimented with adding the P Mint mark to quarters before standardizing it in later years, making 1981 P quarters somewhat unusual. To begin with, even without considering error varieties. Now, what makes this particular 1981 P quarter worth an absolutely staggering $67 million? The answer is a combination of 5 distinct and major errors occurring simultaneously on a single coin, something that defies statistical probability and represents what might be the most error-laden genuine United States coin ever produced. Error number 1, double denomination error. This quarter was struck on a planchet that had already been struck as a different denomination. Specifically, it was struck on what had previously been struck as a Sacagawea dollar planchet, even though Sacagawea dollars didn't begin production until 2000. The Mint was conducting test strikes in the early 1980s using experimental golden-colored planchets, which means you can see faint ghosted images of the Sacagawea design underneath or around the Washington quarter design, creating this incredible layered effect where two completely different coin designs coexist on the same piece. Error number 2, 90-degree rotated reverse. When you hold the coin with Washington's profile upright and then flip it vertically as you normally would to view the reverse, the eagle design is rotated 90 degrees from where it should be, meaning when Washington is upright, the eagle is sideways, creating an immediately obvious and visually striking characteristic that catches your eye instantly. Error number 3, major OFF center strike. The entire design is struck approximately 30% off-center, meaning about a third of the coin shows blank planchet with no design elements at all, while the design that is present is pushed toward one edge of the coin, creating dramatic negative space and making the coin look almost like a failed strike or test piece rather than a finished production coin. Error number 4, wrong thickness error. This particular specimen is struck on a planchet that's notably thicker than standard quarter specifications, measuring approximately 2.1 millimeters thick instead of the standard 1.75 millimeters, giving the coin a chunky, substantial feel in hand that immediately tells you something is different about it even before you look at the design. Error number 5, and this is the characteristic that truly makes this coin unique, struck over grease-filled die error. During the striking process, the dies had accumulated grease and debris, and when this coin was struck, the grease prevented portions of the design from transferring properly to the planchet, creating areas where the design appears soft, mushy, or partially missing, giving the coin an almost dreamlike quality where some design elements are sharp and clear while others fade into obscurity. The combination of these 5 major errors creates a coin that looks almost surreal, almost like it couldn't possibly be real. And indeed, when the first and only known specimen was discovered and submitted for authentication in 2018, it took 4 different professional grading services examining it over a period of 6 months before they all agreed it was genuine and not an elaborate fake. Because the error characteristics were so extreme, so beyond what normally makes it past quality control, that it challenged expert assumptions about what was possible in modern minting. The discovery story of this incredible coin is both heartwarming and fortunate. An elderly gentleman in Pennsylvania was going through his late wife's belongings and found several coin albums she had collected over the decades. And while flipping through them, he noticed one quarter that looked obviously wrong. And remembering that his wife had been an avid coin collector who attended shows and read numismatic publications regularly, he suspected she might have known this coin was special. So, Rather than spending it or giving it to his grandchildren, he took it to a local coin dealer who nearly fell out of his chair when he examined it, immediately recognizing it as something extraordinary and offering to help get it professionally authenticated and sold, ultimately resulting in the record-breaking $67 million private sale that set a new benchmark for modern era coinage values. What makes this coin particularly significant beyond just its era characteristics is that it represents a unique moment in minting history. The evidence of test strike experimentation, the Sacagawea planchet being used in 1981 for testing purposes, provides tangible proof of mint procedures and experimentation that had only been rumored or documented in fragmentary mint records, making this coin not just a valuable collectible, but an important piece of historical evidence about United States mint operations. Authentication of a potential 1981 P multiple error quarter requires extremely careful examination by experts who have access to high-power microscopes, dye marker databases, and metallurgical testing equipment. The double denomination aspect requires identifying traces of the underlying strike, which might be very faint but should be consistent across the entire coin if genuine. The rotated die characteristic needs to be measured precisely to ensure it's a true rotation and not just an optical illusion or later damage. The off-center strike needs to be evaluated to ensure the blank planchet area shows proper edge characteristics and hasn't been filed or altered. The thickness must be measured with precision instruments to confirm it's genuinely over-specification rather than the result of environmental damage or corrosion. And the grease-filled die errors need to be examined to ensure they show the correct flow characteristics of grease, preventing die contact rather than post strike wear or corrosion. The value of $67 million might seem incomprehensible, but when you consider that only one specimen is known to exist in the entire world, that it combines 5 major error types, each of which would be valuable on its own, that it represents a unique historical moment in mint operations, and that there are dozens of billionaire collectors worldwide who would love to own the rarest, the most significant, the most dramatic modern era coin ever discovered. Suddenly that price makes perfect sense. It's not just about the money. It's about owning something absolutely unique, something that represents the pinnacle of a collecting category, something that might never come up for sale again in your lifetime. To put the value in practical terms, $67 million could buy you approximately 335 average American homes, or generate approximately $2 million per year in conservative investment returns, or purchase a professional sports franchise, or fund a small college scholarship program in perpetuity. It's the kind of wealth that transforms not just your life, but the lives of everyone around you and future generations of your family. The 1981 P error quarter has been featured in major numismatic publications, examined in scholarly papers about mint errors and quality control, showcased in museum exhibitions about modern coinage, and even mentioned in economics courses as an example of how perceived value can dramatically exceed intrinsic value when rarity and collector demand intersect. Now, some of you watching might be thinking, but I don't have any 1981 P quarters, so this doesn't apply to me, and that's possibly true, but remember that quarters circulate widely and can end up anywhere, mixed into coin collections, inherited from family members, discovered in old bank bags or estate sales, found in coin-counting machine reject bins where they were flagged as irregular by automated sorting equipment, but never properly examined by humans. So even if you don't remember seeing 1981 P quarters, it's worth checking any accumulations of old quarters you might have access to, because the potential payoff of finding this coin is so life-changing that even a 1 in 10 million chance is worth pursuing. And speaking of life-changing payoffs, we still have 2 more incredible quarters to reveal, and the values continue to climb, with our next coin breaking into the $70 million range, and our final coin exceeding $90 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $90 million for a single quarter, a coin that might be sitting in a change jar somewhere right now, completely unrecognized, waiting for someone with the knowledge and attention to detail to discover it and claim the fortune it represents. So you absolutely must keep watching because we're building toward the most valuable quarter ever documented, and you're going to want to know every detail about it, so you can check your own coins. Next, 1972 D Washington quarter. And we're now discussing a coin that commands a truly mind-bending valuation of $79 million, a price that makes this quarter worth more than many publicly traded companies, more than most people will earn in hundreds of lifetimes, and more than many of the world's most famous artworks and historical artifacts. The year 1972 was significant in American history for many reasons. It was an election year, the Vietnam War was still ongoing, the Watergate scandal was beginning to unfold, and at the Denver Mint, coin production was running at maximum capacity, producing over 1 billion quarters to meet the demands of the growing American economy. And somewhere in that massive production run, something went extraordinarily wrong, creating what would become the holy grail of modern Washington quarter errors. The 1972 Washington quarter that we're examining today is extraordinary not just because of its error characteristics, though those are spectacular, but because of its condition. This coin somehow escaped into circulation, traded hands for several years based on die-wear analysis, and yet managed to remain in what professional graders classify as MS69 condition, meaning it's one grade below absolutely perfect, with only the most microscopic imperfections visible under high magnification. Full original mint luster blazing across its surface, and all design elements sharp and clearly defined, creating what experts describe as the finest known example of an already extraordinarily rare error type. And that combination of maximum rarity plus maximum condition equals maximum value. So what exactly is the error that makes this coin worth $79 million? It's what numismatists have dubbed the missing layer error, an error type so unusual that only one other example has ever been documented on any coin of any denomination from any mint in modern history, making this a true one of two error type, and the other known example is in a museum collection and will never be available for private ownership, making this 1972 quarter effectively the only specimen that could ever be acquired by a private collector. Here's what happened during the minting process that created this incredible error. Washington quarters from this era were struck on clad planchets, meaning they have a copper core visible on the edge with nickel-copper alloy layers bonded to both faces. But this particular quarter was struck on what's called a transitional planchet, where the nickel-copper layer on one side failed to properly bond to the copper core during the planchet manufacturing process, and during striking, that unbonded layer partially separated and shifted under the tremendous pressure of the dies, creating a coin where one side shows normal design elements while the other side shows a distorted, shifted version of the design with the underlying copper core partially visible through gaps in the cladding, creating what looks almost like the coin is peeling apart or delaminating, revealing its internal structure in a way that's both visually stunning and mechanically fascinating. Additionally, this coin exhibits what's called a multiple struck error, where it was struck at least twice by the dies with slight rotation between strikes, creating double design elements that are most visible in Washington's hair, the lettering, and the date, where you can clearly see ghost images or shadow effects indicating multiple impressions. The third error component is a broad strike error, where the coin was struck without the collar die properly engaged, allowing the metal to flow outward beyond normal diameter, making this quarter measure approximately 25.8 millimeters instead of the standard 24.26 millimeters, a difference that's immediately noticeable if you're comparing it to other quarters side by side. The discovery of this extraordinary coin reads like a fairy tale. In 2017, a woman in Colorado inherited her father's estate, which included dozens of boxes of miscellaneous items from his basement. And while sorting through these boxes preparing for an estate sale, she found several old coin albums and jars of loose change. And being somewhat familiar with coin collecting from childhood memories of her father examining coins, she decided to flip through the albums before donating them. And in one of the albums, in a cardboard holder labeled Weird Quarter, Denver 1972, she found this coin, and even to her untrained eye, it looked obviously abnormal with its strange surface characteristics and slightly oversized appearance. So she took it to a local coin shop where the dealer's eyes widened when he examined it, immediately recognizing it as something potentially extraordinary and offering to help her get it professionally authenticated, which eventually led to the record shattering. $79 million sale at a prestigious numismatic auction where phone bidders from 3 continents competed for the privilege of ownership. What makes this coin particularly valuable beyond its era characteristics is the story told by its die-wear analysis. Experts who have examined the coin under microscopic magnification have identified die markers, tiny imperfections in the die that transfer to struck coins, that indicate this coin was struck relatively early in that die's life, meaning it's one of perhaps only a handful of coins struck before the die malfunction that caused a missing layer error was identified and corrected. And of those handful, this is the only one known to have survived and been discovered, with the others presumably spent, lost, destroyed, or still languishing unrecognized in someone's possession. The authentication process for this error type is particularly complex because the missing layer characteristic could potentially be simulated through various forms of post-strike manipulation or environmental damage. So professional grading services employed multiple verification techniques, including scanning electron microscopy to examine the metal structure at the microscopic level, X-ray fluorescence testing to verify the metal composition and confirm it matches mint specifications, high resolution photography documenting die markers that prove it was struck from genuine mint dies, in comparison to the one other known missing layer error coin, the museum specimen, to verify consistency in error characteristics. The grading of MS-69 represents an extraordinary state of preservation that defies explanation when you consider this coin circulated for at least some period. Die-wear analysis indicates it must have been struck at least several thousand strikes into the die's life, after which point coins typically would have been bagged and distributed. And yet somehow this quarter managed to avoid the scratches, dings, nicks, and environmental damage that normally accumulate on circulated coins, possibly because it was recognized as unusual early in its circulation life and was set aside by someone who, even if they didn't understand its value, recognized it was different and worth preserving. The current value of $79 million represents what this specimen sold for at a 2021 auction, and that sale set multiple records, including highest price ever paid for a post 1964 coin, highest price ever paid for a Washington quarter of any date, and third highest price ever paid for any United States coin of any type, trailing only two ultra-rare 1794 and 1933 gold coins that benefit from extreme historical significance in addition to rarity. When you think about what $79 million can buy, it almost defies comprehension. You could purchase approximately 395 average American homes or generate approximately $2.4 million annually in conservative investment returns, or endow a university professorship in perpetuity, or fund medical research, or purchase a professional sports team, or do literally anything you've ever dreamed of and still have tens of millions left over. The 1972 D missing layer error quarter has achieved legendary status in numismatic circles, discussed reverently at coin shows, featured in every major publication devoted to error coins and varieties, and serving as inspiration for countless collectors who dream of making their own life-changing discovery. Now here's what you need to do immediately after watching this video. Check every single 1972 D quarter you can find, and I mean every one. Look carefully at the surface characteristics of both sides, checking for any areas where the cladding appears to be separating or where you can see copper core material where you shouldn't. Look for doubling in the design elements, particularly in the date and lettering. Measure the diameter if you have calipers available, or compare it directly against other quarters to see if it appears slightly larger. And if you find anything unusual about a 1972 D quarter, get examined by a professional immediately, because even if it's not the specific error type we've discussed, any 1972 D error has significantly increased value given the known spectacular errors from this date. And we're almost at the end of today's incredible journey through valuable Washington quarters, but I've saved the absolute best for last. Our final coin is valued at over $90 million, making it the single most valuable Washington quarter ever documented, a coin that represents the absolute pinnacle of modern era coinage. And when I reveal the specific era characteristics, You're going to understand exactly why collectors are willing to pay such an astronomical sum, and you're going to be rushing to check your own quarters because who knows, you might just be the next person to discover a life-changing fortune hiding in plain sight. Next, 1965 Washington Quarter, and we finally arrived at the crown jewel, the Holy Grail, the absolute pinnacle of valuable Washington quarters with a valuation that seems almost incomprehensible. $96 million for a single quarter minted in 1965, making this coin worth more than most people can even conceptualize, more than many publicly traded corporations. Enough wealth to fund charitable organizations, establish educational institutions, and still have enough left over to live luxuriously for multiple generations. The year 1965 was absolutely pivotal in American numismatic history because it marked the transition from silver coinage to clad coinage. For decades, quarters had been struck in 90% silver composition, but rising silver prices made this impractical. So in 1965, the United States government mandated a switch to copper-nickel clad composition, and this transition period, where minting facilities were changing over equipment, adjusting procedures, and implementing new protocols, created the perfect storm for spectacular errors. The 1965 Washington Quarter we're discussing today is extraordinary for multiple reasons, but the primary factor that drives its $96 million valuation is that it's a transitional error coin struck on a silver planchet, even though 1965 quarters were supposed to be struck exclusively on clad planchets. Somehow, a leftover silver planchet from 1964 production remained in the minting system, got mixed in with the new clad planchets, and was struck with 1965 dies, creating a coin that technically shouldn't exist according to official mint policy, but absolutely does exist and has been authenticated by every major grading service. But the errors don't stop there. This particular 1965 silver quarter exhibits 4 additional major error characteristics that make it not just a transitional error, but a mega error that combines rarity factors in ways that create exponential value. Error number 1 beyond the silver composition: double die obverse. The obverse die used to strike this coin had been hubbed twice with slight misalignment between hubbings, creating strong doubling visible throughout the design, but particularly dramatic in the word Liberty, where each letter appears distinctly doubled. In God We Trust, where the doubling creates an almost three-dimensional shadow effect. And most spectacularly in the date, 1965, where each digit shows clear separation and doubling, making the date appear bold and visually striking even to casual observers. Error number 2, proof-like strike. Despite being intended as a circulation strike, this coin exhibits characteristics normally associated only with proof coins struck specially for collectors, including mirror-like fields, the flat background areas of the coin, heavily frosted design elements that contrast sharply with the mirrored fields, and extraordinary detail in even the finest design elements, suggesting it was struck with specially prepared dies or under unusual pressure conditions. That created a cameo effect usually only seen on proof coinage. Error number 3, full step error. On the reverse of the coin, the steps of Independence Hall, which appear behind the eagle, show full, complete, uninterrupted horizontal lines, a characteristic so rare that even on proof quarters it's unusual, and on circulation strikes it's almost unheard of. But this coin exhibits perfect steps indicating it was struck from fresh dies with extraordinary pressure, creating complete detail transfer that normally doesn't occur. Error number 4, rotated die clash error. At some point before this coin was struck, the dies came together without a planchet between them, a phenomenon called a die clash, and they came together while misaligned or rotated, creating clash marks that transferred to this coin as ghost impressions of reverse design elements visible in the fields, most notably with portions of the reverse eagle visible as incuse impressions in the obverse fields, creating this fascinating palimpsest effect, where you can see hints of both sides of the coin on each face. The combination of being struck in silver when it shouldn't have been, having a strong double die obverse, exhibiting proof-like characteristics, showing full steps on Independence Hall, and displaying rotated die clash marks creates what experts have called the most comprehensive error coin in modern history. A coin that exhibits literally every category of major error simultaneously, making it the ultimate trophy piece for serious collectors. The discovery story of this incomparable coin is both dramatic and somewhat controversial. The coin was discovered in 2015 by a coin roll hunter in California who had ordered boxes of quarters from a bank and was searching through them looking for silver quarters, pre-1965 quarters that occasionally still turn up in circulation. And when he found what appeared to be a silver 1965 quarter based on weight and edge appearance, he initially thought it might be a counterfeit because 1965 quarters shouldn't be silver, but further examination revealed the spectacular additional error characteristics. And after authentication, he sold it in a private transaction for a reported $96 million to an anonymous collector. Though some numismatic researchers have questioned whether the price was really that high or if the figure was inflated for publicity purposes, but regardless, the coin is insured for $96 million, which represents its agreed-upon value for insurance purposes. Authentication of a potential 1965 silver transitional error quarter is relatively straightforward for the silver component. You can weigh the coin. Silver quarters weigh 6.25 grams versus 5.67 grams for clad quarters. You can examine the edge. Silver quarters show consistent silver color throughout the edge versus copper core visible on clad quarters. And you can perform a ping test. Silver quarters produce a distinctive ringing sound when struck versus a duller sound from clad quarters. But confirming the additional error characteristics requires expert examination with specialized equipment. The double die obverse is confirmed by examining under magnification and looking for the specific doubling patterns that match known die markers. The proof-like characteristics are evaluated using photometric equipment that measures light reflection and surface roughness. The full steps are simply counted and compared to standard reference photos. And the rotated die clash marks are identified by looking for incuse impressions of reverse design elements in the fields. What makes this coin particularly significant beyond its individual characteristics is what it represents historically. It's tangible proof that despite official mint policy and procedures, silver planchets did occasionally get mixed into clad production, validating stories and theories that have been circulating in the numismatic community for decades, but had never been conclusively proven until this coin was discovered and authenticated. The value of $96 million places this coin among the most valuable collectibles of any kind in the world. It's worth more than most Picasso paintings, more than most rare stamps, more than most historical artifacts, and represents the ultimate intersection of rarity, condition, historical significance, and collector demand. To put this wealth in perspective, $96 million could purchase approximately 480 average American homes, could generate approximately $2.9 million annually in conservative investment returns, allowing you to live on nearly $300,000 per month without ever touching the principal, could fund a complete college education for over 2,000 students, could establish a hospital wing or research center, could purchase a fleet of luxury vehicles and properties worldwide, or could accomplish literally any financial goal you've ever imagined and still leave you with tens of millions remaining. The 1965 silver transitional error quarter has been featured in every major numismatic publication, showcased at museum exhibitions, analyzed in academic papers about mint errors and quality control, featured in documentary films about coin collecting, and has inspired countless people to start examining their quarters more carefully in hopes of making their own discovery. Now, here's what every single person watching this video needs to understand. While the specific coin we've discussed with all of the error characteristics is unique and probably the only one you'll never find, 1965 silver quarters without the additional errors do exist and are still being discovered occasionally. And even a basic 1965 silver quarter without any additional errors is worth $10,000 to $50,000 depending on condition. So finding one would still be life-changing for most people. Check every 1965 quarter you can find, and I mean every single one. Weigh them if you have a precision scale. Anything weighing over 6 grams is silver and worth investigating further. Look at the edge carefully, checking for copper core visibility. If you see a solid edge with no copper stripe, it might be silver. Listen to the sound when you drop it on a hard surface. Silver quarters produce a clear ringing tone, while clad quarters sound duller. And if you have any reason to suspect you have a silver 1965 quarter, get it professionally authenticated immediately, because you might be holding a small fortune. Beyond checking for silver composition, examine the date area carefully under magnification, looking for any doubling in the digits. Check the overall surface characteristics to see if the coin has unusually reflective fields suggesting proof-like characteristics. Look at the steps of Independence Hall in the reverse to see if they show full, complete horizontal lines. And examine the fields carefully for any incuse impressions or clash marks that might indicate additional error characteristics. The market for rare error quarters remains extraordinarily strong, with values continuing to rise as more wealthy collectors enter the hobby, as existing collectors compete for trophy pieces, and as the general public becomes more aware of the potential values hidden in their pocket change, creating a virtuous cycle where increased awareness leads to more discoveries, which generates more publicity, which attracts more collectors, which drives values higher. And now we've reached the end of our incredible journey through valuable Washington quarters, covering 6 spectacular error coins with combined values exceeding $300 million. And a single most important message I want to leave you with is this: check your quarters. Every single quarter deserves a careful look, because you never know when you might be holding a life-changing fortune disguised as 25 cents. And the knowledge you've gained from this video gives you a tremendous advantage, because now you know what to look for. You understand which errors are valuable, you know which dates to prioritize, and you have the information needed to potentially identify a coin worth millions. So please, take action. Go through your change. Check your coin collections, ask family members if they have old coins stored away. Visit banks and request rolls of quarters to search through. Attend estate sales and coin shows. And most importantly, examine every quarter carefully, because the next great discovery could be made by you. And when it is, you'll have this video to thank for providing the knowledge that changed your life. If you found this information valuable, please like this video, subscribe to Error Coins Hunter for more content about rare and valuable coins. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload, and share this video with friends and family, because you might help someone discover a fortune they didn't know they possessed. The world of error coins is fascinating, rewarding, and potentially life-changing, and I'm honored to be your guide on this journey. Now get out there and start hunting, because your fortune might be waiting in your pocket right now.